Thanks for getting back in here. I know it's hard to tear yourself away from the exhibitors. Would you agree that the exhibitors are pretty awesome? Would you? Yes. Very high quality and good, honest people with quality products. In 2005, Dr. J. Wilkins learned of the 1998 Nobel Prize-winning research on nitric oxide, NO. But I bet you when we were growing up and our parents said no, they weren't talking about nitric oxide. As a result of learning about this, he was just, it moved him inspirationally, spiritually, on a soul level. It moved him to change his life and his course and what he was doing professionally. And so he started talking about the benefits of nitric oxide. He began teaching pulse wave analysis, non-invasive vascular screenings that indicate arterial constriction, congestion, stiffness, and blockage, and how over time specific nitric oxide nutrients can cause this reversal. When those arteries lose their plasticity and they cannot dilate and contract, the nitric oxide makes a big difference. What he's been doing right now is developing his own supplement brands, Bionox nutrients. And as I said earlier when I introduced him this morning, that he doesn't have this massive range of products that there's 50 different labels and he's all things to all people for all conditions. He went and he selected the finest types of product that he formulated, but other people have done too, but he's got his own quality line that I said are relevant. And when I talked to you, I said, good job, you have a relevant line of products. It's not over the top that you're trying to be everything to everybody. But what you have, everybody needs.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, it is, that's the truth, and that's why you're here. So come on up and tell us about this miracle molecule.
All right.
Dr. J. Wilkins.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
So how many people have heard about nitric oxide? No, but wow, fantastic. That is great. So thank you very much, and that's really nuts. It's fantastic that so many people have heard of it and you know something about it. It's really, like as Dr. Pesek mentioned, it changed the course that I got on professionally. So it's a big deal to me. Just a little bit about my background. It's not just super crazy. I don't have any Nobel Prize winning research or anything like that. I'm going to share it with you, but I didn't develop it. So I've been in the health and wellness field since 1993. Primarily was involved in energy medicine, testing, homeopathy, vitamins, herbs, that type of thing. That's the main thing I was using modality as far as helping people out. And in 2005, things really changed for me when I first heard about this nitric oxide deal. So to get my degree in naturopathic medicine, part of what I had to study was iridology, and looked at Dr. Jensen's work and had to become familiar with that, and didn't really use that as a modality in my practice, but I really respected iridology and what it is. It's a very sound science. And I'm so happy to say that I just met Dr. Pesek by phone back in, I guess it was January, and we spoke, and he invited me to come here. I was referred by a couple other naturopaths that I respect. And then here just a couple months ago, my wife enrolled in Dr. Pesek's program. So she's going to become an iridologist, and we're going to work together. So that is my wife, Kim, in the back there. The one covering her face. And so anyway, super excited to be here. 2005 is when I went into a health food store. I used to go remotely and see people as well. So different people would host me, and one was a health food store in Birmingham. And I noticed on the counter there was this brochure, beautiful brochure, and it showed this device that could non-invasively show people where their artery health. I was like, man, this is amazing. Because at least 80% of the people that were coming into my office were dealing with cardiovascular issues, whether they recognized it or not. It's, as we're going to see statistically, how bad this problem is in our country and worldwide. And then I saw this Nobel Prize winning research on nutrition. And so I couldn't believe it. This research really gained momentum in 1998. And here's 2005. It was something that supported nutrition. I didn't know about it. I was really kind of embarrassed. I was like, what rock have I been hiding under? And it just, when I started using it with the people in my practice, I couldn't believe the results. I loved the fact that you had a way to screen people. We're going to talk about the screening device, the pulse wave analysis. So I got on board with that and started training people how to use it, practitioners, and so they could implement it into their practice. Since 2005, I worked with one company, was on their medical advisory board for a few years, and then I developed a couple other products for some other companies, and then got into the manufacturing world. That's my business partner, James, back there taking pictures. And so he worked with me, and we started Bionox Nutrients in 2013. So bio, meaning life, obviously. NOx, standing for nitric oxide. And harness the medicine within is the tagline, and explain a little bit about that in the conclusion. But as Dr. Pesek said, I really wanted our product line to focus on nitric oxide. It's such a compelling story, such great research. I wanted to really work within that space, cardiovascular nitric oxide space. So we branded our whole company out of that. So definitely a nitric oxide enthusiast, and I hope by the end of the presentation you'll be a little bit more enthused as well. And this is my picture. Dr. Pesek hates my picture. He says it's blurry and you got to lose the lab coat. So I told him by next year I'm going to have a different picture, but you're going to have to give me that bell. So, but no. Actually he said, well, why don't you just pack up your stuff and get out? No. So anyway, just a little joke there. But he's right. I'm going to get a new picture by next year and lose the lab coat. So here's some of the research, and again, it really gained great momentum in 1998. 3 American scientists, pharmacists, were given the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering the nitric oxide pathway. Here's this little blurb. This is why I didn't know about it. This is what the Associated Press came out. The Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1998 was awarded jointly to Robert Fergat, Dr. Ignaro, Dr. Murad, for the discoveries concerning nitric oxide as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. That was it. That's all that came out. But the thing is that this all is facilitated by what your body makes, arginine, as well as what you consume, which would be arginine and citrulline and nitrates, as we're going to get into in a little bit. Very simple molecule, just 1 part nitrogen, 1 part oxygen. It's made throughout the body through your cardiovascular system, on nerve endings. Your immune system uses it. It's made all over. Some 140,000 research articles to date, according to nitricoxidesociety.org. And it was named Molecule of the Year in 1992. Again, Nobel Prize, 1998. Most researched molecule in history. And it actually led, the first medication was a little blue pill that was created by Pfizer, and it was supposed to have been a medication for blood pressure. And it didn't work very well for blood pressure, but the men in the study said, wait a minute, it may not work for blood pressure, but there's a little side effect that it's doing. Started this whole billion-dollar industry for erectile dysfunction. And so that's one of the things that nitric oxide also benefits for, men and women, is sexual dysfunction. So this is good news. Why? Because when it comes to heart disease, it is the #1 cause of death. Some 600,000 people die each year due to heart disease. As women hit the menopausal years, half are men, half are women. 60% of youth are at risk for heart disease. So about 70% of 12-year-olds already have fatty streaks beginning to develop in their arteries. Every 60 seconds, someone dies of a heart attack. The effects of heart disease is like 7 Boeing 747s crashing with no survivors every day. So it's very much an issue, and it's good to be able to work with your clients and patients to be able to make sure that their arteries are as good as health as they can be, so they're not one of these statistics, because statistically that is what's going to happen to them. So again, I was so compelled. So you start with the first point there, decreasing and reversing atherosclerosis by decreasing intimal thickening. So this is a way actually you can naturally deal with the plaque load and be able to reverse those conditions. That's exciting. People do not have to be stuck with their plaque. There's things that they can do. restores normal endothelial function. So we see so many things it does for cardiovascular. When it comes to cardiovascular, it's a no-brainer. It really works. I've not seen anything work for blood pressure naturally or synthetically to lower it than by boosting people's nitric oxide with this nutrition that we're going to talk about. It really works. So then we also see for issues like urinogenital cystitis, renal function, it boosts human growth hormone, so people can take it before they go to bed and they enjoy better sleep. Improves exercise tolerance. I was talking to Mike. Mike came by the booth today. We got a test done on him. He says, oh yeah, I take that before I work out and after I work out. You wouldn't believe how much more weight I can lift by taking arginine-based supplementation. So it's a very common side effect, again, of boosting nitric oxide is better athletic recovery, endurance, stamina. As far as diabetics, arginine is something that your body uses to make insulin. Also, nitric oxide helps for insulin sensitivity. So it works in two different ways. What goes on here, bowel issues, osteoporosis. My own testimonial is I did have some bone loss. I was on steroids for a short period of time, and evidently it caused me to have some bone loss. I started taking higher doses of arginine along with vitamin D. Next scan I got, the bone loss was gone. So I can tell you it works for that. But we see other sort of immune system issues, improves healing. The list goes on and on. Alzheimer's, so memory and cognitive issues as well. Obviously, when you improve circulation, everything works better. This is Dr. Jonathan Stamler from Duke University. Basically, that's all he did there was study nitric oxide. His comment is, it does everything everywhere. You cannot name major cellular response or physiological effect in which nitric oxide is not implicated today. It's involved in complex behavioral changes in airway relaxation, so lung issues. People can fill their lungs up. That nitric oxide helps them to relax. Beating of the heart, dilation of blood vessels, regulation of intestinal movement, function of blood cells, the immune system, even the way fingers and arms move. Each and every one of us are here because of nitric oxide. When the sperm and the ovum met to make you, for that sperm to enter, it had to shoot out a bolt of nitric oxide to get in. So you can thank nitric oxide for you being here today. Here's a few books, again, that changed the way I looked at things back in 2005. The Cardiovascular Cure, Dr. John Cook, head of cardiovascular research at Stanford. What is the cardiovascular cure? Nitric oxide. No more heart disease, NO, no more heart disease. Dr. Ignaro, Nobel Prize winner. How nitric oxide can prevent, even reverse heart disease and strokes. The Arginine Solution, my favorite book, actually, was written, I think, in 1998. The first guide to America's new cardio-enhancing supplement. How does your body make it? Well, we've heard that laughter is good medicine, and it is. It actually has a physiological effect. It helps you to create more nitric oxide. Exercise. When I scan people with the cardio tester, right after they work out, their blood vessels are nice and healthy and open. And so that's why it helps out. Dietary nitrates, arugula, beets, spinach, kale, all those good, healthy nitrate foods also help to create nitric oxide. Infrared and beamer waves, and so we've actually had some information already on that today. Certain pulse electromagnetic frequencies also will stimulate the body to make nitric oxide. Small amounts of alcoholic beverages, so one alcoholic beverage a day actually is a good thing. After that, it kind of goes downhill, the beneficial effects, but that has been shown to be helpful. And arginine, you heard me mention already. Arginine, semi-essential amino acid. Your body makes a certain amount of it. The rest you need to get from your diet. We're going to talk about dosages here in a minute. So why is it that these nitric oxide levels, they go down? Well, age is the biggest factor. As you can see from the chart, when you hit 40, you have about 20% of the nitric oxide you had when you were 20. So the other things that cause that is genetics, ethnicity, diet, medication, stress, oxidative stress, as well as smoking. Smoking stops your nitric oxide production for about 8 hours. So here's a good visual of a good healthy artery. So according to Dr. Cook, and it will, when you have good arteries, it's like Teflon compared to Velcro. But as we see the progression, as things get damaged, then you start getting fatty streaks. The damage then is compensated by the body with white blood cells and inflammatory things. And so then you get red blood cells, lipids, you get scarring, you get inflammation and calcification as time goes on. And this is the real danger with cardiovascular issues, is not so much the calcified plaque that's stable, but it's actually this right here called vulnerable plaque. See, all you have is that one cell layer of endothelium growing over this pus, heavy metal laden toxicity brewing underneath there. And then you get a vibration in your cardiovascular system because of the narrowing. It creates like a whistle effect, and that top will blow off, and then your body compensates by sending in a clot. So that's where you got problems. So it can happen in the carotid arteries and the coronary artery, but that's the main reason people have heart attacks and strokes, is because of that vulnerable plaque that's not really detectable in a lot of tests that are out there, where the calcium tests are available, but not the major issue like the vulnerable plaque. So here's Dr. John Cook's, again, that's his book. This is a quote from Dr. Van Oot from Mayo Clinic: "You're only as old as your endothelium." So your endothelium is everything. It is where the rubber meets the road. It is, again, as Dr. Cook mentions, if your endothelium is healthy, it's like Teflon, non-stick surface, lets blood flow. Unhealthy, Velcro, everything sticks to it. So when it comes to your cardiovascular health, the endothelium is key. You got to keep that nice and healthy. So the nitric oxide pathway is, again, citrulline and arginine. Arginine converts to nitric oxide, first of all, through the endothelium. You get the nitric oxide synthase. That enzyme then, coupled with arginine, converts into nitric oxide. As you see, the first thing there is vasodilation, relaxing, hence the blood pressure effects, the benefits. Citrulline converts into arginine and then into nitric oxide. So there's a really nice synergistic effect between citrulline and arginine. Arginine converts first. Citrulline, sort of a time release effect, will convert into arginine and then nitric oxide later. So they work excellent together. Dr. Boger really proved this, and we're going to talk about how you can formulate things to really get a 24-hour effect. Dr. Ignarro, Nobel Prize winner. L-arginine is a naturally produced protein building block called an amino acid. Arginine enhances blood flow, improves the activity of the endothelial cells because it is converted to NO in the body. Although L-arginine is found in some foods, red meat, fish, chicken, beans, soy, nuts, you cannot normally consume sufficient amounts in your diet from meals alone. So I will be recommending that you take L-arginine supplement each day. So these next few people that we're going to talk about, I call them nitric oxide superheroes. Definitely Dr. Ignarro is on that list. This is a study that Dr. Cook and Dr. Ignarro did on their own separately, but they were able to prove the same thing. Basically, when they gave rabbits a high cholesterol diet, they all developed plaque. And those that they put back on a regular rabbit diet after the high cholesterol diet, they all kept the plaque. But you can see here, when rabbits were given arginine, you got some nice reversal of the plaquing. When the rabbits consumed L-citrulline, again, nice removal. When you combined arginine and citrulline together, significant removal. When you did just antioxidants from vitamin C and E, some benefits. Some benefits from arginine and the antioxidants. But again, we all know about synergy and the synergistic effect. So when you combine arginine, citrulline, C and E, you get the best removal of plaque formation. Again, it's just the arteries healing themselves. That's all that happens. When the arteries heal themselves, there's no need for plaque. Plaque is a way your body compensates to make sure that arteries don't blow out. And so then it's like, okay, we don't need this anymore. We're healing. We don't need it. We're going to get rid of it. And so back through the muscularis, all that toxicity goes. Doctors Fried and Merrill, again, the arginine solution, they said in the field of medicine and health, it is one of the revolutions of our time. The discovery that the amino acid arginine may be the magic bullet for the cardiovascular system. Dr. Julian Whitaker, many of you probably know him if you've been around this industry for very long. He was very much a pioneer of this whole integrative health movement. And he brings this out. Inadequate production of nitric oxide increases arterial damage. There is a way, however, to break this vicious cycle. Arginine supplements have been shown to restore normal function in damaged arteries. Dr. Sherry Rogers, I don't know if you read any of her books, but she is a very forthright medical doctor that speaks out quite vehemently against the medical way of dealing with things through medicine. And so she wrote a book called The High Blood Pressure Hoax, and I love this, what she says. Researchers have shown that not only does nitric oxide slow plaque growth and suppress arteriosclerosis from forming, but arginine has actually melted away plaque that already existed on artery walls. And we've seen this to be true, that people who had carotid artery congestion go back after using specific nutrients, and they'll go back and they'll have a significantly reduced plaque load. People that have had calcium scores done on their heart, they go back after doing this nutrition, and they're not finding it anymore. And it's a repeated occurrence time and again that we see. Dr. Steven Sinatra, integrative cardiologist, and he is a colleague of Dr. Oz. They know each other quite well. But he brings this out. L-arginine has value for the whole gamut of atherosclerosis, from early signs such as high blood pressure and erectile dysfunction to advanced cardiac events. We feel it offers promise for plaque stabilization. So remember that slide that showed the plaque blowing out? So it helps to stabilize it. But then he says, and reversal. It's inexpensive and non-toxic. We use it clinically for treating angina, high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, and stubborn risk factors we can't otherwise improve. I love that part of the quote, because here's a guy who has everything at his disposal. He has all the medications, he's a surgeon, and then he says, well, if we can't get it worked out, we're going to throw arginine at it, and we're going to get this thing improved. So it's pretty powerful. Very interesting guy. One thing I learned from him also was how he does use Lipitor at times. He never uses it for cholesterol. If someone just has high cholesterol, that's not where he uses it. He uses it to maybe slow down the progression of plaque. And incidentally, the reason that the Lipitor works is not because it lowers the cholesterol, it actually produces nitric oxide. So synthetically, it produces it, not near as good as the stuff we're going to talk about, but it does do that. And so he doesn't do it. He doesn't use it. So, and the reason is because he was routinely seeing that people with 300 cholesterol numbers, they didn't have any plaque. But then he would check somebody else that had what's considered normal and healthy cholesterol levels, and they're full of plaque. He's scratching his head, and he said, well, I thought the cholesterol was the bad guy too. You know, that's what they get trained. And turns out that's not the way at all. So he says, you know, I don't use it for that. And even the statistics, according to American Medical Association, 50% of the people that have heart disease have high cholesterol, 50% don't. So there you go. This is one of my favorite superheroes of the whole nitric oxide story. He and I were actually on the same medical board. He is a diabetic specialist, endocrinologist, and he's retired now, but he was out in the Bay Area, and he had his own story using arginine himself, and that's what got him into it. But you talk about, for diabetics, very important, 75% of diabetics die of heart attack and stroke. So that is the complication. High sugars, they just rip up your arteries. They cause a lot of damage. That's why the neuropathy, that's why the necrosis, the amputation, the eye damage, all those things, because they just completely damage those small arteries, and then they continue to work on the big ones as well, causing heart attack and stroke. Well, let me just briefly tell you about his story. He used to be a spokesman for Lipitor and how it worked, or statin drugs, and how it worked for diabetic patients. His colleague was a cardiologist, and he would speak about how Lipitor works for cardiovascular patients. And so his name was Dr. Victor Zhao. He was at Stanford. He went on to be the head of medicine, chief of medicine at Harvard. So these are really smart people. And so he said, hey, Dr. Joe, I got this great research that's coming out. I'm not going to tell you about it. It's my research. So he's like, man, what is it? I want to know about it. So he went online. He found out what it was. And it was arginine. That's what he was researching, was arginine, Dr. Zhao. And so he said, I need that. He knew he needed it. His dad had a stroke very early and died of complications of cardiovascular disease. He went and saw his colleague and had him do an abdominal aorta scan in his 30s. And without looking at him, he's got his x-rays there on the light board, and he's without looking at it, he says, who's your cardiologist? Because he knew he was in trouble. That was in his 30s. And so he knew, Dr. Joe, he knew that medicine didn't have the answers, but he was going to find a solution. So that's when he came across this research of Dr. Zhao, some 30 years later. So he started taking arginine. He had the same doctor from 30 years ago take his scan, his x-rays again. This time he puts his scan up and he says, what in the world are you doing? And I want to do it, because they were completely clean. His arteries had completely reversed. So a really great story. So he said, obviously this is going to have benefits for my diabetic patients. So he right away started using it. He used to refer 250 patients a year to a cardiologist prior to arginine. After arginine, maybe one per year. To the point where 3 doctors that he used to refer to were wondering, what did we do? Did we make you mad? You're not sending us patients anymore. So, well, why don't we go to lunch and I'll explain it to you. All 3 of them, same time. So he started explaining the whole simple nitric oxide arginine story. And do you think they were interested at all? Not one bit. 2 of them shut down their clinics. 1 moved to Atlanta, where he can see more patients. I guess the good Southern cooking keeps them busy. So anyway, so that's what's happened. They weren't interested in the solution. So he started, while he was using it, like I say, he's retired now, but while he was using it, he did not have any patients that have a heart attack or a stroke, and that was for over 20 years. So just an incredible, again, a great person. He saw what needed to be done, and he made the efforts and pioneered it. So great doctor. So that's about the arginine side of things. Now let's talk about the last few years. There's been a lot of interest in nitrates. So there's always been this interest in nitric oxide, especially since 1998, but it's primarily believed that the arginine pathway was the main way that you do that, and I still believe it is. However, there's really great research that also shows about the nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway. You get these nitrates, again, through diet, like arugula, and corn has some nitrites, beets, spinach, but it converts through a different pathway. So through the arteries is where you get your endothelium-derived nitric oxide, but through these nitrates, you actually, as you consume them, if you have good mouth flora and if you have good mouth pH, you start to break down those nitrates into nitrites. And then it goes down, you actually produce some nitric oxide there, goes down into the stomach, and you actually will start to absorb and create that nitric oxide in the stomach, goes further through the digestive system, and you continue to break those nitrates to nitrites, and then back into nitrates, and then into nitric oxide. So that's done through the digestive system. So it is also some great research. Dr. Greger, I don't know if you guys ever watch his videos. They're pretty clever. They're short. They're to the point, and they're pretty humorous. But he does a really nice job. A big advocate for nitrates. The DASH diet, which has been named by Forbes magazine to be the best diet for the last 9 years or so, it highly endorses nitrates. It's for hypertension, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So, what would make the best nitric oxide boosting supplement? Get the water. Here's a few things that you'd want if you're going to really stoke up those nitric oxide levels. First of all, you want to make sure that it has the right amounts in there that have been researched to work to make nitric oxide. So 5 grams of arginine minimum, along with 2,000 milligrams of citrulline. And the way that you want to take that is break those amounts up to taking them at 12-hour intervals. And when you do that, again, this goes back to Dr. Boger's work, when you have that like 2-to-1 ratio, you actually will produce nitric oxide then all day. You take that scoop of arginine and citrulline before you go to bed, you boost those HGH levels, you sleep better, you're healing, but you're also producing nitric oxide even while you sleep when you take it that way. So those are critical things. Nitrates, as we mentioned, that's another great way to boost not only the arginine pathway, but also the nitrate pathway. So you can make your nitric oxide in different methods. And then you also want to protect nitric oxide from degrading. It's very susceptible to free radical damage. So nitric oxide only lasts about 4 or 5 seconds, and what can happen is these nitric oxide could get bombarded by free radicals, and it makes it to where it doesn't last very long at all. So again, going back to that slide that we saw of the rabbit study, it's synergistic when you have the antioxidant protection. So we use vitamin C. We put 5,000 IUs of vitamin D, and the vitamindcouncil.org. I find those guys to be really the forerunners of this whole vitamin D story, and the ones that are advocating what dosages to use. It's not 400 IUs. That's not going to get you very far. But they recommend that every healthy individual uses 5,000 IUs. If you have issues, you need to use more than that. So we use that base amount to create and help your body to be healthy. And then vitamin E, pomegranate, camu berry, high in vitamin C, grape seed and grape skin extract. All those are excellent cofactors within an arginine and nitric oxide boosting supplement. As mentioned before, you also want your pH to be healthy. So your mouth pH, your digestive system pH, and so minerals can help when there's over-acidic issues going on in your body, which typically is where people are at. They tend to be a little too acidic. And then, as we mentioned, where you generate that nitric oxide is within the endothelium, so that one cell layer thick in the arteries. And so the way that you can do that is some good herbal support, hawthorn berry, green coffee, horse chestnut, Indian gooseberry. Those all have really good research for supporting the endothelium. And then we use a very expensive complex called astrogen, and it's ginseng and astragalus, and it's been proven to heat up the digestive system. It's a Chinese method, but it's actually proven, documented, that you absorb up to 60% more of your amino acids when you add that complex in there. So it's important that obviously that you don't take all this expensive ingredients and then not absorb them. As you know, it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb, right? So we put that in there in case someone has a compromised digestive system, which again, people as they get older tends to happen. So that's a good thing to have. So I know Dr. Pesek told me we don't do any selling here, but this is my one shameless plug for my product. I'll tell you a little bit about why I believe that M3 Miracle Molecule Max is really what I consider to be the best thing on the market. And there's a lot of good products on the market, but this is why I believe that we got the best thing going. And a lot of it, as you see in the nitric oxide support blend, we use a specific type of arginine called alpha-ketoglutarate. It's a lot gentler on the digestive system. It absorbs better. We're also able to make the product taste better because of the type of arginine that it is. Along with the L-citrulline, the beets, the pomegranate, watermelon, the Latin word actually comes from citrulline, so it's high in citrulline. So that's really the boosters is that complex right there. And then the cofactors, the C, the D, the E, a natural vitamin E, and then the endothelium benefits of those herbs that we spoke about, grape seed, grape skin, camu berry. One of the reasons besides the antioxidant benefits for the camu berry is that the other thing that nitric oxide does, a precursor to your neurotransmitters. So dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, all those good, happy neurotransmitters, also they are supported through the nitric oxide pathway. So camu actually has a mood elevating benefit. So when you boost nitric oxide, naturally boost those neurotransmitters, add the camu. We got some really great testimonials of people with severe depression even being able to do much better once they take this. Deep ocean minerals, and then the astrogen. We use all natural flavorings, components, sweeteners to make it taste good. It's not real easy to make an arginine product taste good. Arginine, I've never tried it straight, honestly. I've never done it because I've heard it tastes somewhere between gym socks and dead fish. So neither of those are really that appealing to me. So it takes a lot to make it taste good, but I really believe that we've been able to do it. It has like a raspberry lemonade. So how do I know if I need it? This gets back to the little screening device. So when I got involved in this in 2005, the screen device that I was using was a Class 2 medical device, and they were $6,000 to purchase. And so obviously they're kind of cost prohibitive, even though they did really great things. To where now, the one we use called the Smart Pulse, actually you can get for $500. Yeah, to me it works actually better than the $6,000 unit that I had, and it does more things. It also does a heart rate variability test, which we had Dr. Porter speak about that earlier. So it does a 3-minute test, and these are the things that it tests for. So you see the stress analysis. It checks to see how balanced you are from the sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system, and through that, it gives you an indication whether the person getting screened has more physical stress, where they have like a physical issue that's going on, or whether it's more mental, emotional. Then you drop down, you got stress resistance. So this is a kind of a good indicator as to how well they're able, how healthy they are to be able to deal with stress, internal and external stresses, and then it boils everything down to a stress score. So if it's 50 or below, that's fairly good. Once they get into the 60s and 70s and beyond, then stress is a real issue. And then if you're working with people, you can make some good suggestions as to how they can deal with their stress better. You notice at the top also it checks your heart rate as an average for the 3-minute test, and then it also checks ectopic beats, which are like skip beats. So if it's over 5, there could be some issues. They may want to get EKG to see if there's some abnormalities or AFib or some different issues like that. And so you can point them in the right direction for those issues. It could indicate stress, mineral depletion as well. So those are things that you can make recommendations on. And then you have the arterial health analysis, and the large artery circulation is the top blue line, and then it also checks the peripheral elasticity, the hands and the feet, and then it gives a score. So 100 is the best score that you can possibly get on the artery score, and then you also are given a type. And so you create pulse waves, and that's what this is actually measuring. With each heartbeat, you create a wave. It's measured in the fingertip, but if you have good, healthy blood vessels, you have one type of a wave pattern, which would indicate that your arteries are nice and healthy and flexible, you know, more Teflon-like as opposed to Velcro. And then in type 2, low risk, but still maybe things are starting to get inflamed a little bit, a little tacky, a little sticky. And then type 3, things are starting to thicken and stiffen, and then you can see with each successive number is progressively worse condition. But the good news is, as I've been working with this since that time frame, is that if people will take the right nitric oxide boosting nutrition, you rescreen them in 90 days, and then 90% of the time, you will start to see changes. You'll start to see a better scoring here. You'll start to see they're going from these types down to types that are much better and lower risk. So that's the great thing, is that, you know, it's one thing to show people where they're at, but if you don't have the tool to help them get to where they need to, that's not even half the battle. You really need to be able to put them in the right direction. And that's why I thought this was so cool right from the very beginning, to be able to test now, make some changes, retest, and see what it's doing. However, the test is not necessary. As we discussed, if you're 40 and over, your nitric oxide levels are half of what they were when you were 20. If someone's got cardiovascular issues, and even with the test, if somebody's, I've had people that just had open heart surgery, they're on about 8 different medications, and they'll test real good, but it's because their medications are synthetically keeping everything open. So I just congratulate them, say, look, your test is good, your meds are working, but if you're interested in trying to being able to come off those meds or do something that's really going to help your arteries to be healthy, then you might want to do this. So regardless of the cardiovascular issue, again, it works well. Lipid dysfunction, elevated cholesterol and triglycerides, this does help. Tons of great stories on that. Blood sugar issues, the immune system, your T cells, B cells, natural killer cells, all those immune system cells, they use nitric oxide to disable pathogens. And so it's important, again, for your immune system. Eye issues, as we mentioned, getting circulation into the eyes is a major problem, that and oxidation. And so by improving those capillary circulation, we see a lot of great results for glaucoma and other type of issues related to the eyes. Helps with energy right away. Those are the things that people notice right away. They say their energy is up because more oxygenation, better blood flow. They sleep better right away. And then over time, they can actually use this course with their medical doctor if they're on medicines to be able to look at actually doing some medicine reduction. We talked about sexual dysfunction, men and women, brain, improves that circulation, neurotransmitters, athletic performance, again, lean muscle mass, energy, stamina, recovery, all those things that you want when you're working out. Maybe Dr. Pesa could have been in the top 5% in the running, if he had the nitric oxide stuff back then. Inflammation, that was another cool thing, is that people were taking the product because they tested bad and they wanted to work with their supplements to get their cardiovascular system better. But they say, well, could this possibly be helping my joints? I don't need my high-powered pain medications anymore. And the research actually bears that out. Morphine, if you ever had to use morphine because you're in pain, you know how powerful it is and how it works. But that's why morphine works, is it creates nitric oxide on the nerve endings, and it's able to help with pain. So pain and inflammation, also a big side benefit. Here's just a few little testimonials of what some are saying. I mean, it's just so fun to collect these stories. And this is, again, just a little sample, but Dr. Rasmussen, chiropractor friend of mine, known him for 25 plus years. And he says, I've been using and recommending M3 for over a year now. I've had hundreds of patients using it and indicating outstanding results. One 86-year-old patient was having high blood pressure issues, but a recent doctor's visit showed excellent improvement. In fact, her doctor said, you have the blood pressure of a teenager. Whatever you're doing, keep at it. Louise, good friend of ours, she has AFib and her husband has severe diabetes, but she said, I just wanted to say that my husband and I both benefited from taking M3 every day. Wayne's cholesterol has come down to normal and he doesn't have to take dangerous meds. In fact, all his blood work is in the normal range now. I have AFib. It can feel a huge difference since taking M3, and so much so that I don't need medications for it. Thanks for the M3. It has helped us both. Joanna, massage therapist as well. It says message therapist, doesn't it? It should be massage therapist. Anyway, she's also a CrossFitness enthusiast, and if you ever have seen these guys in CrossFit, do we have any CrossFit people in here? Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so but what happens to your body? But she uses it. She says, I can tell a huge difference in my energy. I put a lot of physical demands on my body, and I can tell that my recovery time is much less. I'm pretty much addicted to this stuff, and I've been telling everyone about it. And then my friend Mike, he's an older gentleman and is, I think, close to 80 now. He said, 18 years ago, I had a 4-way bypass operation for clogged arteries. I've been regularly taking M3 for the past several years. It works much better than I could have imagined. I enjoy walking, riding a stationary bike, and rowing. My blood pressure has been good, and my surgeon says I'm doing great, no blockages. So these are just examples. Of course, I know this is to treat, diagnose, cure disease. That's a little disclaimer in there. Probably don't necessarily need it for this group, but there it is. So you can go to bionoxusa.info, and that has a lot more testimonials, a lot more of the research that you can pull up as well. So again, Bionox nutrients, the tagline, harness the medicine within. And that's because, as I probably don't need to tell you, your best medicine comes from your own body. So the neurotransmitters, the hormones, the enzymes, all the great stuff that your body makes on its own is what keeps your body healthy. It's not something that's going to be synthetic. So the goal is to boost your body's own great medicine. So that's what we encourage you to do. Harness the medicine within, help yourself, help the people that you're influencing. Thank you for your attention.
Did you say your partner's name is Jerry?
It's James.
James. I knew it was a J. James, come on up here.
Come on up here, James.
Sir James.
This is an award for putting up with me.
That's right. Well, you guys being good partners and working together. It's a recognition of both of you that are doing some really good work that's really relevant.
Thank you so
And
much.
you did a really nice job of explaining it to us all in a way that's really understandable, that wasn't burdened with tons of statistics. We just want to know the bottom line.
Right.
You know, those other folks, they can look at all the white paper and all that kind of stuff, but what you're doing is really important. James, come on over here, buddy.
All right. We're over here?
Yeah, come on over on this side. And so this is for both of you. So it's presented to Jay, Dr. Jay, because he was the speaker, but it also includes you, James, is right? Because of Bionox Nutrition. And you're the speaker, you're both sponsors, so this is your plaque.
Awesome.
Together, you know. You can arm wrestle for it, you can take it, you have it 1 month, you have it, or you put it in your office or whatever you're going to do with
Okay.
it. But truly, again, as I've said for all of our speakers and sincerely for both of you, thank you for presenting with great appreciation your love, wisdom, knowledge, all of that you shared with us, and what you're going to continue to share over in the exhibit hall when you get to go visit them and talk with them about their products. So gentlemen, this plaque is for both of you
Thank you.
and for your accomplishments in the field. You want us to scoot over?
Yes, if you guys don't mind.
Okay, sir. Yeah, you can put your hand on the bottom.
Okay.
There. Yeah.
That made you look better than you do.
Wow. One was enough? Okay.
Well, yeah. We'll do it again.
Do it again.
Okay. Just for good measure.
Uh-huh.